Hi, I'm Dave from Sailing Laguna. Last episode, we visited Antigua and the lovely English harbour. We had a look around at the historic Nelson's Dockyard, walked around Fort Berkeley, and explored a trail all the way up to Shirley Heights. We snorkeled the tall ship's anchor and chain, the wrecks that are in the harbour there, interacted with some wildlife, which was quite cool, and also had a look at the Pillars of Hercules out the front of the harbour. Alright, well, welcome to a beautiful sunrise over the island of Guadeloupe. So we left Antigua last night at about 9 p.m. Sam had a phone call she had to take, and we had basically one of the best sails we've actually had, on the entire time we've been on the boat. We had about 17 to 20 knots from behind, so we had one reef in the main, obviously being overnight, and with those stronger winds. And we pulled about 7.5 knots pretty much all the way through the night there to bring us into Guadeloupe here in the morning. Anyway, we're going to try and skirt a few of these, Caribbean countries here on our way to St Vincent and the Grenadines. Alright, Samantha, let us all know, what have you done with the sails this morning?
Well, we did have the mainsail up as a full sail, but the wind picked up to sort of 23, 24 knots. So I've just put one reef in it. We're still going about 7.5 knots, so pretty good.
So Sam was driving and brought the boat into the dock yesterday, and the guy at the dock who catches the ropes said, "Beautiful driving and beautiful captain."
Something like that.
Well, if you're ever sailing in this part of the world, here's some interesting stuff that's going on. The trade winds are still blowing from the east, at about 17 knots, but when they hit the island of Dominica here, they cause all of the warm tropical air to go up and over the high mountains, which of course causes them then to cool, and you can see the precipitation falling down there on the mountain. Over here on the western side of Dominica, now we're about 10 nautical miles off the island, and I thought we would actually have the trade winds and we'd still be sailing. But check this out, 10 nautical miles off, and we're actually getting backwinded. We're actually getting a gentle westerly breeze that's blowing towards the island of Dominica in the opposite direction of the trade winds. Anyway, yeah, weird stuff, eh? Guess I probably should do something about that backwinded sail. Well, we're just off the island of Martinique now. We stayed about 15 nautical miles off this one, so you can see that we've got good wind out here, although Martinique is a bit of a smaller island than Dominica. We'll pass St Lucia, of course, on our way to St Vincent. Now you might be asking, well, why are you skipping them all? We've got to skip Guadeloupe and Martinique, the French territories, mainly because they're still a little bit difficult to get into for non-EU residents. And then Dominica and St Lucia we're skipping because we're really just out of time. It's currently late June, so we're already several weeks into hurricane season, and we've already had, of course, a few little blops on the weather system. We need to get further south so that if something does develop, we can duck underneath it. Anyway, this is the end of today, I guess, and we'll be into St Vincent in the morning. We had to pass through a shipping lane throughout the night. I watched with interest as another yacht did a 180 to avoid an approaching ship. It then came back onto course before having to do another 180, which ended up seeing that they sort of gave up and just headed over to the windward side of the islands, I presume to try and get out of the way of the shipping lane. We arrived at St Vincent and the Grenadines in the morning after 36 hours and 2 night passages. We pulled into the quarantine area at Young Island Cut, where we had to complete our first actual quarantine period. It was only for 4 days, and we had the very picturesque view of the resort, and apart from a quick flow of sargassum through the area, we were able to swim from the boat and help ourselves cool down and to beat the time.
I'm going to film myself diving.
Okay, show us what you got. Apart from a quick trip to the grocery store, we didn't tour around the island of St Vincent. 3 months earlier, something had occurred which a pessimist might use to delay their sailing plans. The volcano on the island of St Vincent had erupted, and it had caused, of course, people to evacuate their homes. It was suggested to miss several of the main attractions as they had not recovered from the volcanic ash and debris. I guess you can tell why monomarans are becoming less and less popular. Alright, well, I'm off the boat. Can you believe that no one else on the boat wants to come and walk this with me? Fort Duvernette or Fort Rock? Let's go and check it out. Lonely Planet said you'd find random things like this. It's a shame. Yeah, so I don't understand who buys KFC, drives 20 minutes, jumps in a boat, drives out to Fort Rock, walks up 200 stairs, and thinks that they're really in the mood to eat fried chicken? Ugh, couldn't think of anything worse. And something you might have thought is peculiar, well, why is the cannon facing your own land? So apparently, originally, a lot of the indigenous peoples from the smaller islands, they basically had to retreat here when, of course, the Europeans turned up to the large island. So they had basically a mass of forces. And eventually the British, of course, overcome them. But then the British were still at war with the Spanish and, of course, at times the French. And so the French, being cunning people that they are, they were supplying the local Indians that still lived in this area, and local indigenous people that still lived in this area, some which were Arawak Indians, with weapons. And so the indigenous peoples would attack the British, so sometimes the British actually had to fire upon their own lands to try and repel the native forces. And actually, well, not to say that the Arawak Indians weren't, this wasn't their rightful lands, but they did displace a different indigenous population that lived here a couple of thousand years before that. So, yeah, look, Europeans were bad, but the Arawak Indians did the same thing a couple of thousand years earlier. As we make our way to Bequia, we still have Sam's mother's funeral to consider. A date had not been set at this stage, but Australia was in the initial stages of a COVID outbreak, so restrictions could prevent it from occurring anyway. This might actually work in ours or Sam's favour, but I guess you'll need to watch the next videos to find out what happens. I hope to see you then. Alright, well I guess that just about does it for Fort Rock. Our next stop's going to be over to Bequia. Whoop, over there.